Okay, the recording is live. So, like I said earlier, we'll try it one more time. Welcome. The Braunfels Photographic Society Digital Pro Lab welcomes you to tonight's educational program, which is going to be on color management for photographers, from capture to print. I'm going to address some issues when it comes to capture. When we transition from capture to monitor, Amanda will pick up the ball and run with it from there and carry the rest of the program. So listen, when you take a photograph and you're gonna really print big, or it's important to you, it's an important client, or probably the most important person is for you, okay? When you're gonna print something that big and display it in your home, you want it to come out from the print shop the way you saw it on your monitor, okay? So a couple of tips I want to share just right up front. The first thing I would do is shoot it with a Sony. The second thing I would do is get it printed at Digital Pro Lab, okay? All right, so, but all joking aside, okay, regardless of what camera system you're using, it's probably best if you shoot RAW, because the camera captures so much information that you can use if you post-process. Now, for folks that have cameras that don't shoot RAW, and there are cameras out there that don't shoot RAW, and for photographers that have cameras that shoot RAW or JPEG, but choose to shoot JPEG, there are things you can do in camera to produce a better JPEG, okay? A couple of things I just want to talk about is a RAW file records all the information captured on your camera sensor in an uncompressed form, okay? RAW files need to be processed in an application such as Lightroom or Photoshop before they can be used, and otherwise they look flat when they're taken straight out of camera, okay? Because they haven't had any settings applied to them, like sharpening, saturation, contrast, without you shot it in JPEG. But what's nice is with the RAW file, you get something that is a larger file size to work with, and some of the pros and cons, okay? Uncompressed files need to be processed. You get a large file size, maximum information captured from the image, flexibility during the post-processing, and a much larger dynamic range than the JPEG, okay? The cons, compress, process, it's ready to go out of camera. That could be a positive if you took some simple steps to improve the quality of the JPEG coming out of camera. It's a smaller file size. It's clipped, okay? It doesn't have as much dynamic range, okay? Here are some couple of tips, and our next educational program is going to be a more in-depth explanation of the things that you can do in camera to improve your JPEGs coming out of camera. So here are 3 menu samples from Canon, Nikon, and Sony. First, let's talk about image quality, okay? Like I said, RAW is probably where most photographers like to shoot, but on the other side of the coin, if you have to shoot JPEG, then at least pick a JPEG file size that is as large as it can be, like In Sony, it's called extra fine. In Nikon, it's called it's just called fine in Nikon. Hang on a second, I find some, let somebody in. Where'd you go? Oh, there we go. Joe Edwards just showed up. Okay, so picking RAW or JPEG, if you pick RAW, then you know you're going to make your edits in a post-processing software program. If you pick JPEG, then you want to take it a step further, okay? This is where you want to go to, in Canon, you want to go to picture styles, in Nikon, set picture control, or in Sony, creative styles. And what these are settings to where you can go and tweak the outcome of the JPEG, because they're set to a default level, which pushes, you know, cooks it in camera and it comes out a certain way. But if you want to tweak those settings, you can. All you have to do is, once you clicked on it, as you can see, Canon, Nikon, and Sony, they all have, where they have their auto, they have portrait, landscape, monochrome. Select the style that you want to work with. Then click on it. And as you can see, Canon, you can adjust the sharpening, contrast, saturation, and color tone. Nikon, sharpening, contrast, brightness, saturation, and hue. Sony, I can tell you that with the Sony, you see, I have portrait lit up, and then you have the 3 plus or minus zeros, where the first 0 is for contrast, the second one is for saturation, and then the third one is for sharpness. So depending on what camera system you have, you've got multiple layers of where you can affect the outcome of the JPEG. And as you can see, in the Nikon and the Sony, most of the settings are set to 0, set for sharpness, okay? Sharpness for Canon was set at 2 clicks. Well, if you want more, you can add more, okay? So this is where, coming out of camera, and placing the image on some type of device. So color accuracy will differ from device to device. You can't control how someone else's device is going to show your photo, whether it's a phone, tablet, or monitor, how it's going to display. What you can do, however, is ensure that color is accurate on your end. The way to do this is through monitor calibration, which Amanda will discuss at length. And this is where we're going to transition to Amanda to speak more on this piece. And then I got one slide to show before she totally takes over the entire program. Go ahead, Amanda.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the owner of Digital Pro Lab in San Antonio, Texas. We're the largest pro lab in San Antonio, Texas, and the surrounding area. And one of the most important things that we do with our customers and with our photography guilds is teach color management, because it is quite literally the most important part of our process, from monitor to print. If you're editing your images, how many of you, show of hands, are editing your own images in Lightroom, Photoshop, Capture One? Cool, yeah. There's reactions at the bottom too, if I can't see you, but perfect. So most of y'all are editing your own images. How many of you, show of hands or show of reactions, are working on calibrated monitors? Okay. How many of you have no idea what calibration is or what a calibrated monitor is? And that's totally okay too. That's why you're here. Okay. So I'm a musician, and one of the ways that I like to explain monitor calibration that's digestible, because color management, monitor calibration, it can be very dry, it can be very technical, is to explain it in metaphor. So as a musician, if any of you are musicians or at least have a general concept of what it means to play an instrument, most instruments need to be tuned. Everybody understand that concept? So same principle applies in our industry as well, because we're using multiple instruments, whether it's camera or computer, laptop with your monitor, all the way down to the printer. Every part should be calibrated or tuned to an industry standard of color, so that when photographers like yourselves play in a band or in an orchestra with labs and the printers that we have, we're all playing in the same, with the same standard of sound, same standard of color. And most people that come into our lab really don't have that general understanding of the necessity of calibration. And that's where we see the majority of the issues, the majority of dissatisfaction with our customers receiving something in print that they didn't expect, because what they expect is for whatever they saw on their monitor to be what they see in print. And again, if their monitor or their instrument is not tuned, then they could be playing on their own or editing on their own, and it looks all hunky-dory. But the minute that you take that component, that edited image on that non-calibrated or non-tuned device, and have it play in a band or an orchestra or along with us, all of a sudden you're hearing this out of tune, right? So one is not calibrated, the other one is. Which one's right, which one's wrong? Hate to say it, but a lot of times it's going to be just a lack of knowledge on the actual photographer's part when you're editing your image, that you just didn't realize that you needed to be toward that industry standard and be in tune. And that's what I'm here, and that's what I like to do. A lot of education with our photographers, or again, our guilds here in San Antonio and throughout, just so I make sure that everybody understands that very, very important part of a photographer's workflow and process, so that you again get consistency and accuracy from monitor all the way down to print. Especially if you're taking all of that time, hours and hours, editing your images in, whatever your editing systems or softwares are, just for it to fall flat at print because you didn't understand that one little component. Okay? Does that all make sense so far? Show of hands, good? Yeah, cool. All right. I think you're good to go to the next slide.
Okay, let's, the next slide. Up there, whoops, there we go. Okay, so listen, everybody, you saw that big print that I had printed up at Digital Pro Lab in one of the earlier slides. And I've worked with calibrated monitors for a long time, but I got a new laptop and my calibration device was kind of outdated. So I bought one from Digital Pro Lab, and it's a really good upgrade from what I used to have. As you can see, you get the instruction book, the CD with the program on it, and there's the device. Okay, Amanda's going to talk to us about installing the software, running the calibration, and going from there, and then going from monitor to printer. Okay, I can tell you, probably the best investment I've made this year was buying that calibration device. Okay. Okay, Amanda, I'm going to stop my share and you can go ahead and share your screen now.
Right. So does everybody see me? Just want to make sure. I don't know if I'm in the center. Okay, so before I share my screen, you saw the unboxing there that Victor had. So that's the i1 Display Pro by X-Rite. That is a colorimeter or a calibration device that we personally really like. There are several others out there. That one in particular, the one that I'm going to be using today for demo, is approximately $249. You can find it a little less or a little bit more, but I know we sell it for $249. But again, there are different brands, different types, different levels, depending on what you're wanting to calibrate, and they could be less expensive or way more expensive. I know we have others that we use internally that are upwards of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, if not more, especially when you're getting into like creating Icc profiles for printers and things like that. They just have different bells and whistles that might be necessary. So I did want to point that out as far as options for you and just general cost if you're looking to invest in a colorimeter device. Okay, so bear with me while I try and navigate my screen really quick because I have several screens that I want to show you and I just need to get to the first one. All right. Okay, can you see my screen? Good. Okay, so this right here is the i1 Profiler software. And if you can still see me, let's see, let me stop sharing my screen really quick. Okay, so if you can see me, I have my colorimeter device right here, and I have it actually plugged into my MacBook that I'm using. And when you purchase the device, just like you saw with the unboxing, you'll just unbox that device. It'll look like that. And the first thing that you're going to need to do is actually install the software that you just saw. So it either comes with a CD disc that you can actually plug into your computer and it'll automatically run that software for you. You'll just go through the prompts. If you're like me with a MacBook here, I don't actually have something that I can put a CD in. So in that case, I'm just going to go right on over to X-Rite's website, and I'll go through that real quick just so you can see, because many computers nowadays don't actually have that CD drive anymore. So give me one sec while I share my computer screen one more time. Okay, does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to switch right over to X-Rite. So it's xrite.com. Let me move my head out of the way, one sec. All right, so if I run right up here to the website, I'm going to go to Service and Support, and I'm going to go to Top Downloads. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and then I'm just going to scroll my way down to the particular device that I need to download software for. And right here you see the i1 Profiler. Does everybody see that? Good. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. And then it's asking which specific software download that I want to install. If you purchase a new one, generally, you're either going to go, I went ahead and downloaded this one right here, but you can also do the latest and greatest if you'd like. I'm just going to go ahead and click that top one. Then it's going to take you to the download page. And from there, either you have a PC or you have a Mac. I have a Mac, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. And that's going to download the zip file. Do y'all see the little download here in the lower left-hand side?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So that's downloading. Again, I have it already downloaded, so I'm not going to run it and all of that because that actually takes about 10, 15 minutes to do. So that's fairly simple. Just double click on it and then run through the prompts in order for it to download to your computer. And then once that's done, let me minimize. Are y'all seeing all my screens? Okay, so you can see my desktop. So right there on my desktop is the i1 Profiler software, which is what you would double click on in order to get to the software. And let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and double click to launch it.
Your screen seems to be frozen. Is it just me or?
No, that's what I'm seeing.
No, you're fine. I think I just need to re-switch it. 1 second. Share my screen, i1 Profiler, okay. Okay, do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we're right back to that i1 Profiler software that I was showing you earlier. Now you know how to download it. Now you know how to generally install it, and then double click on that icon to get here. In order for the software to work, the device does need to be plugged into your computer, and it is plugged in through USB. So hopefully you do have a USB port. I know some newer Macs no longer have a USB port. So good luck with that and get your adapter for that. All right, and then I'm gonna go through a more simplistic way of doing this, especially because many of y'all are new to this. And like I said, calibration can get very complicated very quickly. And I'd rather you have a general knowledge of the proper way to do it before we get into the nuances depending on your device and your situation and your monitor, and then little tweaks of advanced settings. Again, I'd rather kind of start from a general base instead of getting all into the nuance of it. All right. So up on the upper left-hand side, you'll see that there are multiple devices that we can profile. The two that we can actually profile with the specific device that we have is going to be obviously display profile, which is what we're going to be doing. Our display is our monitor. Projector, which if you have a projector, you can do that. And then you can see here printer profiling. It doesn't allow you to do. It's got a demo mode, but really it's gonna require you to upgrade. And then scanner profiling as well. You have to upgrade to a different device entirely in order to enable some of those features. So I'm just gonna go right on over to display profiling. I'm gonna just click on that. All right, does everybody still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, so we're just gonna start up here at the top. Again, I wanna start more simplistically. There are gonna be options here at the bottom, and then you can also see additional drop downs. Most of what you're seeing, anytime you're using a calibration device, whatever is default for a reason. These are tried and true settings that X-Rite typically is utilizing that has pretty good consistency to start with. So I always recommend, especially if you're new to this, to kind of leave things at default and see how the calibration take shape at the end first before you start messing with a lot of settings. Again, it gets real complicated real fast. So the first thing that you're seeing right here is actually the device. So it's recognizing my particular device, which is just, again, my MacBook. So it's got my display. If you have multiple displays, for example, if you have a laptop that's hooked up to a external monitor or additional monitor, you're going to see both the laptop display here as well as that additional monitor that you have hooked up. For this purpose, I don't have multiple monitors hooked up together. I just have the one, but should you have multiple devices or two monitor setups on your computer, you would see both of them here, and you can calibrate each one of them independently through this process. Again, we're just going to do one. We'll keep it simple, but no, that's also something you would see in this area, which is why you have this big blank area over here. That's what that's for. All right. So the default setting is recognized as white LED. which is pretty standard. CCFL is another one that you could try afterwards, especially if you have a Mac computer. But again, we want to start with all default settings. So we're going to start with white LED. Your white point, again, is going to be set to D65, but you can see that there are multiple settings here. I'm just going to stay right there. And then your luminance, which is expressed in candelas per square meter. I usually recommend, and the default is actually 120, but I'm going to recommend it at 100. So we'll set that there. And then go a little bit further. Again, let's keep it to standard, but we can see that there's some custom settings as well as Srgb. We just want to default it standard, leave the gamma where it's set to. Ambient light smart control. We have this little checkbox right here that says adjust profile based on my ambient light. We don't want to initially consider any fluctuation in lighting just yet. So we're going to leave that unchecked, okay? And then what we're going to do is move all the way over here to the lower right-hand side, see where it says home and then next, and we're just going to click next and just follow through with the rest of the steps here. Let me move this out of the way so I can see. Perfect. So now we're in the measurement step. So there's not really too many settings up here. We're just going to leave everything as is. Now the display hardware setup section, we do want to note that. Automatic display control basically means that your computer is going to automatically set based on what the calibration device recommends. Even though that sounds great, we're actually wanting to do things manually if we can, which is why we have your adjust brightness, control, or contrast and RGB gains manually. So basically what that means is if the colorimeter device tells us that your monitor is too bright, we're going to manually on the actual device, whether you have a monitor or a laptop, adjust the brightness levels down or up, depending on what it's telling us. Is it too dark? Is it too bright? Lighten it up or darken it up, and so that we can, again, be to the standard of what it recommends. So we want to do that manually. So make sure that's checked. Now you don't see it here, and trust me, I got lost earlier when I was trying to do it again on this little screen, but do notice there is a slide bar over to the right. If I go down, the most important part of the calibration setup steps is this start measurement. You don't want to hit next without starting the measurement, and it is a little hidden depending on the size of your screen. Again, I couldn't see it and I was like, where the heck did it go? And it's right here, start measurement. So I'm going to go ahead and click start measurement. Does everybody see that? So it's giving us an overview of the device and what it wants us to do. So I'm just going to take my device just as it's indicating, and I'm going to go ahead and turn over the ocular diffuser, which if you can see me on my screen, I'm just going to flip that over until the ocular device there, or the Oculus, can actually see. And I don't want to touch that. It's just like a lens. You don't want to put your fingerprints on it. And then if you follow these steps, just like the system is indicating, we can see exactly what it wants us to do. So I'm going to go ahead and place my device right on the face of the monitor. Does everybody see what it's indicating that we need to do? So it's pretty simple, nothing crazy. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Let me just center it up. And we do want to make sure the device is flat. We don't want it kind of off kilter. We want it flat on the monitor because it is going to be reading the output color and light, or what we call luminance and brightness of the monitor, and it needs to be able to measure that. So if it's not laying flat on the device, it potentially could be picking up ambient light and adding that into the calculation and adjustment. So we definitely want to make sure that that's flat on there so no other light source is able to get in. Understand that part? Okay. So then I'm going to move up to the upper left-hand side. The great thing about the i1 Display Pro is it does have this step-by-step. So it's, again, it's not very complicated, especially if you're doing it in the method that I'm teaching you initially. It can be very simple. So it says, please hang the device at the center of the display and press next. So we're gonna go ahead and follow that instruction. Now what you're seeing, does everybody still see that? Okay, good.
Is your monitor supposed to be a certain in a certain state, or in a certain, like what should be on your monitor?
Are you asking what you should be looking at on my monitor right now?
Like when you put the profiler thing up there, do you want it on your desktop? Do you want it, like in the illustration, it shows the monitor as black. So what should be on your screen when you pull that thing down?
Hold on, give me 1 second.
Did I miss that part?
No, give me 1 second.
I was late. Sorry, I apologize.
It's okay. Can y'all actually see my screen right now? It just shows a white screen.
No.
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 Give me 1 second, because I gotta kind of make sure y'all can see what I'm seeing. Desktop. Share. Okay. Do you see a white screen, and then the upper left it says brightness adjustment?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. It looks like every time I switch with the device system, it looks like it might be switching in and out of some different screens. So just let me know if you don't see something. All right. So what it's done so far is, if you didn't see this part, it just showed a blank screen of black, different shades of gray, and now the last one is white. So what we're looking for right now, or what the device is looking for, is brightness level, and whether or not we need to adjust the brightness up or down, just like I was talking about a little while ago.
Okay,
So,
sorry, I missed that part. All right, I get it.
So on the lower left-hand side right here where my mouse is, you can see the luminance, and it's saying that the target white luminance is 100, okay? My measured white luminance is 388. So we are really, 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 really bright, which means anytime our monitors are too bright, we typically are going to adjust our images darker. And what's going to happen at the lab is we're going to print it really dark, okay? So brightness level for monitor calibration is really, really, really important, okay? Especially if you have a laptop like I have for this example, especially a Mac. Macs right out of the box, especially MacBooks, like this laptop that I have, are generally way too bright. So I have my brightness all the way up 100%, and it's way too bright. It looks great. You know, it looks wonderful because I could see everything, especially if I'm in a darker lighting situation. It looks perfect, but really it's not about what I want. It's about what is true to color and what is the industry standard, you know, for our photographs, right?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you had to go backwards. I got it.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm literally taking my fingers to my keyboard right now, and I'm gonna manually adjust the brightness. And I don't know if y'all can see that adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's moving down. Yeah.
Great. So again, we want the target luminance to be at or around 100. So we want to get it as close as we can. And it may not be exact depending on what your adjustment tools are. So mine's just a little, like 2 little buttons that I have here, and I'm just going to either move up. So right now it looks like if I move up, I'm at 115 and I need to be at 100, and I'm going to move down and I'm at a 91, it looks like, versus 115. So I either want to be 9 off or I want to be 15 off. So we're going to go with 9 off, okay? So that's as close as I can get this particular monitor. So I'm going to just go with what's closest. And then I'm going to go ahead and go next. Okay. Does everybody see that? All those colors that are changing?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So now what it's doing is measuring color. So just like, you know, when we have our instrument, we've got different sounds, different notes and sounds that those notes are supposed to make. Same thing here is it's putting out different colors and it's measuring those colors to see where they need to be true, okay? Or to that industry standard, like we like to say. I can't see on here, but I think there's about 118 patches that it's going to be running through. So it's going to take about a minute or two. So we're just going to let it run its course. Does anybody have any questions yet? Pretty self-explanatory, or?
So once you've adjusted it, let's say you've moved your brightness down, if you adjust your screen later to get back to where you wanted, do you just kind of remember where your brightness should be, or do you have to go through the profiler setup again?
So especially for a Mac, right? Where typically maybe I like it brighter if I'm watching Netflix or something like that. I generally will remember that it's like 6 or 7 ticks back, right?
Right.
And I'll usually remember that so I know where I need to be. If you don't remember, then you definitely are going to have to go through the profiling process again in order to figure out where you need to be accurate, or as close to accurate as possible, right? While this is going on too, I did want to mention and have you do a quick test for me, okay? Because there are some recommendations for ideal monitors or devices that you should be using. So real quick, if you're looking directly at your monitor, I want you to move to the left and then move to the right, then stand up a little bit and then just come back down. If you saw any major shift, then your monitor is not ideal for image editing, okay? Generally, devices that show pretty obvious shifting of color when you slightly move out of like a straight on pane, right? That is not ideal because you're gonna move, you're gonna adjust, especially with a laptop, you know, you're gonna move it a little forward so it's at a 90-degree angle, so you're gonna move it back so that you can see it depending on how high you're sitting. So it is important to invest in a monitor that has IPS technology. IPS technology stands for in-plane switching, and what it means, let's see, I like to use a lot of analogies because I'm not the most highly technical person, or I don't try to be anyways, because then I'll confuse myself. But if you've ever looked out your window and you have blinds, right? So you have these horizontal blinds, and you can always kind of tell when they're closed that there's a little bit of light shining through them. And if you kind of step up, you can see more light shine through them. Or if you do it in the opposite direction, depending on how those are flipped, you can either see more light or see less light, right? So in-plane switching doesn't use horizontal paneling like that. What it's doing is it's creating kind of a weave in which it's displaying light to you, so that instead of like this, you know, horizontally, you can actually see more light coming through. And as you go up and down and left and right, the lighting is going to slightly adjust, and the colors are going to adjust because of that. Versus in-plane switching, you have this weave that will prevent some of that from happening. So if you're not sure, I would encourage you to look up your specific monitor device and just see spec if it has IPS technology. Again, it's IPS technology, and if it does, then you're good to go. If it doesn't, I encourage you to potentially invest in another device. And I know the one that we recommend, I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you want to know, I'm happy to email it to y'all. The one we use in our lab is, again, approximately about a $250 monitor. That's what we use on all of our computers for the most part up front, and the ones we use in the back. It's very affordable, and it's very consistent. It has really good, you know, monitor calibration. I don't know, I want to say features, but the features that are needed for optimal color calibration. So, all right, so that's done. Just gonna move this back. Okay, so now what it's asking is for me to take my ocular device here, and it wants me to just switch that over so that the diffuser is now, so you see the ocular device there. So my diffuser is gonna be on it, and it wants me just to go ahead and set that down on the table or desk near my monitor. What it's gonna do is it's gonna measure my overall lighting situation of the room that I'm in, okay? And it's gonna take that into account now. So I'm gonna go ahead and go up here on the upper left-hand side, and I'm just gonna go ahead and click next. And this part doesn't take long at all. And then I'm just gonna click OK. Hold on, I lost my, where'd you go? All right, there we go. Everybody see that? Everybody can see my screen, right? I'm back in the I1 profiler suite. Okay, great. So then I'm gonna go ahead and look right here at my color patches. Can everybody see those color patches right there on the right-hand side? Great. So what you're seeing is a split tone in each of the individual squares. So what it is a before and after measurement of color and each of those color outputs and the adjustment that it needed to make to get it in line. So we can see the first option was way too bright. And remember, we were really, really bright. So we had to darken all of that up. And then it measured the colors to get them in line with the industry standards that we needed. So I'm gonna go ahead and click next. Okay. Now this section right here wants us to go ahead and save the profile that it's created. So generally you can leave it at the default, you know, color LCD, and then the date. The date I would say is probably the most important thing, especially if you're gonna be calibrating your monitor, you know, frequently enough. You wanna remember by seeing the actual profile name, what date, so that you know the last time you actually calibrated it. So I'll leave it there. I'm actually gonna, let me see, just put like DPL or something at the front of it. Okay, so this next section right here, so this is profile distribution, and it says user level. So I don't know if any of y'all have multiple users on your computer. So for example, if your wife or husband also uses it, or your kids, if you want the calibration, the profile to be distributed across multiple users, then we want to make sure that this user level checkbox right here is checked, so that when it switches users, it doesn't go back to default or to something else, right? We want that to be consistent across the board. So we'll leave that checked. Again, simple rule of thumb with softwares and things like that, leave everything default initially and run through your processes and see where it lands before you go and start making some major tweaks, and then, you know, it gets real complicated. So again, that's a default. Profile reminder, you can set some reminders if you think, you know, you want to do it. I get a lot of questions with regard to how often you should be calibrating your monitor. If you're printing pretty consistently, and for me, consistency I would say constitute printing at least once a month, then my answer to that question of how often you should be calibrating is whenever you see that your prints no longer match your monitor. Okay, that's sometimes a good indication that, oh, something's off. Either something's going on at the lab or something's going on our end. I know our lab is very, very, very color critical. So we're pretty streamlined in the sense that we're going to see if something is off, but it also could be us. I'm not saying that that any lab is, you know, perfect for sure by any means, but we do want to make sure the first thing that we're going to check is to make sure that your calibration is on where it needs to be before we really start deep diving into some of the other printers and things that we have in our workflows. All right. But if you need a reminder, you can put that there. All right, ambient light monitoring. So ambient light monitoring, I usually say just leave it off. Again, lighting in your specific area may shift and change slightly. So I don't know where you like to edit. I don't know your specific area, if it has windows that you can't close blinds on, if it has, you know, lots of natural light, and then you have, you know, orange lighting or, you know, fluorescent lighting or this or that. And depending on time of day, you know, you've got your lights on or natural light window is open, but then you turn your lights off. You know, we always want to develop some consistency in our situation where we're editing. So keep that in mind when you're calibrating your device, is try and figure out at what time do I normally, right? When do I normally edit? What does the lighting situation look like? What lighting can I control versus what I can't control? And sometimes that outdoor window lighting is not controllable because it changes throughout the day, right? So maybe investing in some curtains that are light, what do you like, blackout curtains or something. Just go ahead and close those so that the only light you have is the light that you know is going to be consistent, which is going to be your whatever lighting situation, your bulbs or whatever you have. You know, just kind of limit any variable if you can that's going to be changing, and that'll help with monitor calibration too. If you have a laptop, you know, and you're taking it, you know, to the coffee shop and then editing at home and editing in the light and in the dark, you're definitely going to see some monitor to print issues because your lighting situation is changing so drastically. So just kind of rules of thumb. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save Profile. Go ahead and click OK. And then over here, I'm going to go ahead and click Compare Profile. And it's showing me the after. I'm going to go ahead and click the before. And I did calibrate my device ahead of time, so you may not see a huge shift. So go ahead and do that. But you can, you know, switch between your before and after to see how drastic something was. And my calibration from prior was actually pretty good and pretty consistent. So I'm not seeing a huge shift, but you may see a pretty drastic shift. And that's good too, because that means you know you're right and you're in line. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and everything is saved. So I'm just gonna click back to home and I'm done. Hopefully that didn't seem too complicated. It's fairly simplistic, again, if you kind of follow the default approach, go from start to finish. Now the next thing is to actually evaluate whether or not the calibration is accurate. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the i1 profiler. If my screen switches, let's see what happens. Let's see. Okay, does everybody see my desktop? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so let's see where I want to take this conversation next. Okay, I'm going to take it into Photoshop real quick. All right, so at Digital ProLab, we partner with a company called Onsite. Scott Martin is a local artist. He's also a world-renowned color expert. So we work with him to maintain our color consistency as a lab. And one of the things that he's given us to be able to distribute to y'all is this evaluation image, okay? And that evaluation image, let me see. I'm gonna see if I can add it, or if somebody could add this to the chat while I do this real quick. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, does everybody see me? So this particular little thing that I have in my hand is our monitor evaluation kit that we give away free of charge to any of our customers that ask for it, whether you come into the lab, if we have them available, we'll just hand one to you. If you want, we can also give you one and we can mail one to you. But within it contains that same image that you just saw on my Photoshop. And in order to download that image, you can either get the disk, or at the bottom of the disk, it actually has a bit link, which automatically will download that image directly to your computer. So Victor, if you'll do me a favor and in the chat, please type bit, which is bit.ly /eval image. Everybody get that? So it's bit.ly /eval image, and that's automatically going to download that evaluation image. Perfect. That evaluation image directly to your computer, which can be viewed in either Photoshop or Lightroom. Not exclusively. I know some of y'all might be using Capture One, or you might also be using like Affinity Pro or something else. I know we typically as a lab are going to stick with kind of some of the industry standard softwares. The two are going to be Photoshop and Lightroom. And those are the two that I'll kind of demo for you how we use them, you know, with regard to evaluating our image and our monitor calibration. So I'm going to go ahead and open that back up. So in order to properly evaluate monitor to print, you need to have the image, one on the monitor and one in print. Okay, so let's talk about the print first. Okay, so let's see. Everybody sees me, right? Okay. So with regard to the image, and I'm sure you know this, as you have your prints, as you move them around your specific lighting situation, and remember, we don't have very controlled lighting in our homes. It's more for decor. You may have like a warmer feel of lighting. So your image is going to reflect whatever lighting situation that it's in. So of course, if it's too dark in your room, the image is going to look too dark. So we need consistency between monitor and print when we're viewing. So we need consistency in viewing of the print. And the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is in order to view your print properly and have a perfect monitor to print match, this image, your print, needs to be viewed under daylight balanced lighting. Daylight balanced lighting. Not warm lighting, not lighting that's a little bluer. It needs to be daylight balanced lighting. So you can invest in daylight balanced bulbs, or you can simply take the image to the window under a normal daylight consistent sun, right? Not in an overcast day necessarily, but where the sun is, you know, normal. Here in Texas, you shouldn't have a hard time finding sun. We've got a lot of it. So just take it over there and just kind of view it. And that is gonna perfectly emulate the way your monitor is gonna display the evaluation image, okay? So that's the free way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to invest in something like this. I'm gonna open it real quick. So this is a true color OttLight. Sorry, don't mean to blind you, but that's an OttLight. So we use them in the lab, and we have different huge ones and smaller ones. So this is a little desktop one that I like to use for, you know, purposes like this. And what we use when we calibrate our customers' monitors, should y'all need us to calibrate something, we'll evaluate it under the OttLight. Again, it's producing that daylight balanced lighting that we would want to view our image under. So I'm just going to open it up real quick and not blind myself, hopefully. You're not really going to be able to see this very well. There's a lot of light bouncing around in screens and stuff, but you know, we've got that. And then as soon as we bring it in, now it's really blown out, I'm sure, on your screen, but in my actual lighting area right here, this is perfect. This is what we want to see. And when we're comparing, we never want to hold, I'm going to move this out of the way. We never want to hold this print in front of the monitor, okay? I never want to hold it in front of the monitor, because what happens when you have a subject in front of a light source, the subject is much darker, okay? So that's the first thing that everybody does is they hold it up to the monitor. Oh, it doesn't match. Well, it's because of that. So use your photographic knowledge. If you put somebody in front of a sun, the foreground person is going to look dark unless you have something emitting light onto your subject matter, right? The same principle applies here. The other thing is people like to move it to the right of the screen or to the left of the screen. Again, unless that left-hand side of your screen happens to have an alt light right above it, then your eyes are still adjusting to light reflecting off of a print versus light emitting from a monitor. Okay, so your eyes are trying to take all of that and process different ways of capturing. And sometimes, I know, human and my eyes aren't the best sometimes, so I definitely I don't want to be doing any of that stuff. So alt lights are really important, or like I said, if you don't want to invest in an alt light, and alt lights aren't terribly expensive. I think ours, like this little one that I have right here, is under $100. But if you're doing fine art printing and things like that, and you really want consistency, then making sure that you have consistent lighting to view your prints under is going to be really important. That daylight balance lighting also, if you're doing any gallery shows, the bulbs that they typically put in the lighting is typically going to be daylight balance lighting. So that's something else that's kind of important to know. All right.
Amanda?
Yeah.
It's OT light, O-T?
O-T-T-L-I-T-E.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a lot of different versions and variations. A lot of times people use them if they're making quilts or sewing, I think, from what I've seen. So there's different variations. And again, really what your goal is daylight balance lighting. Daylight balance lighting. And then there's going to be a lot of different options out there that you can find or invest in. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the light, but we're going to pretend like it's still up, and I'm going to move all this out of the way, and I'm going to go ahead and reshare my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, does everybody see my Photoshop screen? Perfect. Okay, so I know that this is consistent, and when I'm looking at it under my alt light and I'm looking at the image on my screen, it's fairly consistent. And I say fairly because we're going to go into soft proofing soon, and I'll explain the nuance there. But I do want to also point out, when we look at an image like this, there's a lot going on, and our evaluation image that we provide you for evaluation is meant to really test every component of the monitor. So you're seeing multiple squares here, multiple images. So you have a black and white image here at the upper left. You have the image on the lower left, which has really bright, vibrant yellows and reds, blues and greens. That image is really meant, even that pink right there, your magenta, is meant to test your color gamut, okay? Color gamut is the range of colors available to you, okay? So if I look here in this middle one, very neutral skin tones, over to the right-hand side, again, we're getting blues, we're getting some of those really bright reds and orange. And then down here, we're seeing some shadow detail. And then up here at the top, we're seeing some black shadow detail as well as blue. And then on the upper right-hand side, we're also seeing some of the black area right here. We're seeing some star trails, all of that stuff. So as we kind of move forward, you're going to see why some of these particular image selections were so important in creating this particular evaluation image, okay? And then up here in the middle, this is really the litmus test, and it's the one thing that freaks everybody out when we start to see our soft proofing. And I'll explain what that is in a little bit, because it's the one thing that's going to drastically shift when we associate printer paper profiles, or what we call Icc profiles. You're going to actually see that some printers cannot hit these beautiful neon greens and yellows and reds. Some papers really aren't meant to produce deep, deep blacks. They're more of a matte black because it's a matte paper. And those things are going to be really apparent in this area. Not so apparent sometimes in the black and white, not so apparent here in the neutral portrait. And most of us are kind of shooting in this range, so we don't normally notice some minor shifts. But when we're using this kind of evaluation image, which is a stress test of color gamut and brightness to dark, it's really meant to test all those things so you can automatically see the capabilities of the printers, the paper, and really what your monitor is able to display versus what a printer's capability is able to produce, okay? So we try and educate all of our clients, and a lot of this is a lot of information, but do know that after this, you can always call us and we'll always kind of go over specific areas of what we're teaching today, because sometimes we just need to hear it over and over again and practice until we're confident and comfortable with it as photographers. So I just want to know, I'm always a resource for y'all, so don't hesitate to email me or call me or come in. So there's that. All right, so let me get into Icc Profiles real quick. But give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to switch to another screen. Let's see where it is. Hold on. Okay, does everybody see that? Pro Photo RGB, Adobe RGB, and sRGB? Does everybody see that? Somebody will let me know real quick. I just want to make sure you can see it.
No, I can't see it.
Can't? Okay.
I just see RGB. That's
all right, no problem. Give me 1 second. I'm just shifting through so many. I've got to make sure I've got the right stuff in here.
Screen looks frozen here.
Just give me 1 second. I think I'm working my way through finding what it is I need to display. Almost found it. 1 second. Let me see if I can throw it into Photoshop. It might be a little easier. Good. Okay. Everybody see my Photoshop screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now you can see Pro Photo RGB, Adobe RGB, and sRGB.
Right.
Perfect. Okay. So I just want to give this little caveat, and hopefully this clears up any issues that you might have in the future. How many of y'all are actually shooting and editing and exporting images in sRGB? Quite a few of you, okay. Adobe RGB, and then Pro Photo RGB. Okay, so most cameras are set to export out of camera and sRGB. If you're shooting raw and going into Lightroom and you're exporting, most Lightroom export settings are automatically set to sRGB. Some might be Adobe RGB. And then hopefully none at this point are Pro Photo RGB. I'll explain here in a second. But let's go ahead and look at the red triangle in the center. Does everybody see my mouse kind of outlining that? Good.
Yeah.
So this is sRGB. This is what most professional labs require, that your JPEG images, when they're exported and ready to print, should be JPEG in sRGB, what they recommend that setting to be. So JPEG, sRGB, 8-bit. And one of the reasons why Pro Labs recommend sRGB is because most printers print within this color space right here. So see how outside of that triangle, there are a lot of different variations of color outside of that. So there's really bright reds and, you know, fuchsias. There's really vibrant greens and yellows. And then you get into some of these kind of teal colors and blue or cyan colors up in this area. So if you're printing silver halide, which is, if you've ever ordered from our lab, that's going to be our Kodak Pro Luster paper, our Kodak Pro Gloss paper, or our metallic paper, our Kodak metallic paper. All of those papers are produced with RA4 machines. RA4 machines are chemistry machines. So if you're familiar at all with darkroom printing, you know that there are there's light sensitive paper where we're projecting an image directly to that light sensitive paper. A reaction is happening, and then you place it into your different chemistries in order to produce your image. So the same thing is happening in that type of a machine. It's just, you know, more for speed. So that's what's happening there. And most people are typically printing on RA4 machines when you're doing like a matte or a glossy paper. Now, if you're doing a different type of paper, like a fine art paper, like a Hahnemuhle smooth photo rag or Baryta, or something a little, you know, more textured like canvas, generally those are not produced with light. Those are going to be produced using ink and what we call giclée printing. Giclée, I believe, is a French term that just means squirt. And what it's indicating is it's the squirting of ink to paper. So that's where the term giclée comes from. And generally, a giclée printer can print here in the Adobe RGB color space, which we're seeing right here in yellow. So you can see that in Adobe RGB, there's quite a few more color variations that it's able to hit. That particular printer is able to hit those color variations. And then Pro Photo RGB, there's even more color variations that it can actually hit. Now, I will tell you that Pro Photo RGB is actually able to hit colors that even a giclée printer, or what we call a high resolution inkjet printer, right, giclée, can't hit some of these colors. So why do I mention this? I mention this because depending on what your color space is, it may sound really awesome to be saving and exporting your images in Pro Photo RGB because, hey, I can see all of these colors and I can hit this and my screen is capable of displaying them, etc. But when you go to print, if a printer is not capable of producing those colors, then you're going to be a little disappointed that you weren't able to hit a certain level of neon green or a really vibrant red because of the limitation of that printer, okay? So that's why we recommend Srgb. I even sometimes recommend, especially if you're going to be doing giclée printing, so that's canvas, fine art papers, things like that, to be here in Adobe RGB if you just want a little bit more color capability, okay? Pro Photo RGB, again, I'm a little leery. I really want to talk you through why you would be using that and what papers you're going to be using. Because if you're just going to be printing to our Pro Luster paper, what's going to happen is you're going to have your Pro Photo RGB image and it's going to guess. Okay, so even though it's saying, hey, the image needs to be printed with this green, this neon green or something up in here, and the printer recognizes it and says, yeah, I don't know what the heck green that is. I'm going to guess at what color green it is. It's going to choose something over here, okay? And that happens pretty often when people don't really understand that shift, that color gamut shift, and the limitation of that printer. And what we don't want is for technology sometimes to guess at what we want. We want to work within the spaces so that we can actually dictate what color we want something to be, okay?
So are you saying that when you're working, when you set your color profile and you're doing your post work, are you saying that you should be in those color profiles? or should you be in those color profiles when you're exporting to print?
It's typically going to be at an export, generally. It really depends. I don't want to confuse anybody. It is gonna depend on a few different things, and maybe when I go into the soft grouping, we'll kind of demystify some of that stuff. But generally, we would want to dictate what color space at export. Okay, and again, most of your cameras are going to be, and maybe Victor can help after the fact, tell you what your camera is actually set to, and what it's exporting, and whether you're shooting JPEG, even if you're shooting RAW, it may be working within certain world of color, which is what we have here. These profiles, sorry, your color spaces are different worlds of color. So we'd want to kind of see what world of color you're in, but most of the time Srgb. The other thing to note for Srgb is the internet. So anytime you're putting your images to Facebook or something like that, or Instagram, or your website, the internet actually displays in Srgb.
Right.
So, keep that in mind. All right, so let's go down. I'm gonna go ahead and get our other image back and delete that out. All right, so I'm in Photoshop right now, and I just wanna show you this really quick, and then I'll show you how to do it. What we're gonna do now is soft proof, and what soft proofing is basically when we take a printer's specific Icc profile, okay? So let me explain what that is really quick, just so we don't lose anybody. So what we've done with our monitor is created a profile to tune, right? To tune the monitor to the industry standard of color, okay? We also do that with printers, and with printers, we create Icc profiles to basically get the printers in line to the industry standard of color, as well as push the printer's capabilities so that we can hit certain colors. And a really, really great color scientist or color technician can actually really, really push what a printer can do by creating really, really excellent Icc profiles. And we have a lot of people that we work with, but on site, which is Scott Martin, actually really helps us get all this in line and push the limitations of what our printers are capable of to create those Icc profiles. And the Icc profiles are what we use for our printers, again, to push the limit of what the printer can do, but also keep it in line, true to color, that industry standard of color. The other thing we do with the Icc profiles is we can provide them to our photographers in order for y'all to apply them during soft proofing to emulate ahead of time what a printer is going to do to your image, okay? And not just what a printer is going to do specifically, but what a printer printing to a certain paper is going to make your image look like, okay? So let me show you that real quick. Basically is applying a filter to show you what it's going to look like before printing, okay? Now give me 1 second while I move some tools around because I'm seeing all the Zoom tools up here. All right, so I'm going to go to the view. Everybody see that at the top in Photoshop? How many of you are using Photoshop? Or most of you? Okay, a lot of you are going to be using Photoshop. Good. All right, so we're going to go up to view really quick, and I'm going to go to proof setup. And I'm going to go ahead and click on custom. So that's view, proof setup, and then custom. And I'm going to give it a second, and it's going to pop up this little window. Does everybody see the customize proof condition window? Okay, great. So right here, the proof conditions, device to simulate. So I have associated here one of our printers at Digital Pro Lab, which is our Pro 4000. This particular Icc profile is our Hahnemühle smooth photo rag profile for that particular printer. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and click preview. And I'm going to move it out of the way so you can actually see what's happening. Okay, so right now it's on and now it's off. on, and off. Is everybody seeing some color shifting? Shifting in shadows, highlights, things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on. Let me move this out of the way.
So how do we get those?
Yeah, you're good. So I'll explain that here in a second. Let me explain what to do with them before I make you deadly enough to use them. All right, so you can see right there what it's doing. Now remember, I told you at the beginning of this part of it that we want to really take these images individually and see what they're actually doing. So let's take the black and white, for example, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Just look at the black and white. Don't look at anything else. I know it's going to be tough, but go ahead and look at the black and white. And now it's on. And I'm going to go ahead and go on and off for a second. Are you noticing any major shifting in the black and white?
No.
Correct. Okay. Now let's go ahead and take the neutral toned portrait. And we're going to do the same thing. Just look at her and see if there's any major shifts that are occurring. Are you seeing any major shifts?
No.
So I can see it a little bit here in the collar and here on her shoulders. There's some shadow detail there that we're losing just a little bit, kind of a little bit of a contrast there. As I'm off and on, off, on, off. Now I can see it on mine. I'm hoping that it's translating on your screen. Okay, so it's off right now. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch that profile to our Pro Luster paper, which is also known as Pro E paper. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So now I'm switching to a different paper that's produced with a different printer and applying that profile or filter, right? So that's off right now. Now it's on, off, and on. So again, if we look up at the black and white image up there, we're not seeing any major shifting. And I'm seeing even less shifting with the neutral portrait at the bottom. I do still see a little bit of shifting in the shadows, but not as drastic as I was seeing it with the other ICC profile that we had associated, okay? Now let's look at this photo to the lower left-hand side, the one of the kids with their little balloon jumpy thingy. And let's go ahead and turn it off and turn it on. Off and on. Okay, so what you're noticing is right here in this middle area of that red, hopefully y'all see that. If I turn it off, it's very vibrant. And as soon as I turn it on, you kind of lose some of the like saturation, okay? So if you remember when we were talking about ProPhoto RGB and Adobe RGB and sRGB, this is kind of a little bit of what we're talking about. There's going to be certain colors that you can see on your screen depending on what your profile or what your color space is that you're using. And then also capability of printer and paper. So once we look over here at the type of printer, and I know that's a silver halide type of printer, and then the type of paper, I know that it's not capable of actually producing certain levels of red, which is what we're seeing everything kind of mute. So let's look up at the top, okay? So this is the thing, like I said at the beginning, that everybody freaks out about. So if you look here at the squares at the top, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and preview, turn it off. And now it's on, and now it's off, okay? So that's pretty drastic, and it's meant to be. It's meant to test that color gamut capability of that printer type, as well as the paper and what it's capable of producing. So we can kind of see that. Now, again, when you take your black and white image or you take your neutral tone portrait, you're really not noticing too much. And if you shoot in those areas, like very neutral tones, then I wouldn't worry too much about this paper or this printing method. It's when you have landscapes, for example, that you're trying to shoot, or flowers that are very vibrant in color, or if you really like to do architecture and some of the architectural aspects of a building or something are very vibrant and saturated, or you like to pump up the saturation as part of your specific style, then really you need to be isolating a specific printer type that has the capabilities to produce what it is that you're trying to get across, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead. So this is a similar paper. This is Epson Luster, which is our Pro Luster, which is actually produced on the high resolution inkjet. So it's not light like we were just seeing with the other profile. So this one, because it's ink, has wider color gamut. So if I turn it off and on, you're still seeing that there are some areas that are getting clipped, but maybe not in that red or that neon green like we were seeing with the luster on the silver halide machines, okay? So again, it really depends on what you're producing. And if you ever have any questions, that's what I specialize in. I can help you figure out, okay, what type of printers you want to be printing to and what type of papers you want to be printing to that are going to make sure and maintain your color gamut range or your shadow detail, or if you're doing black and white, if you want a really, really deep black, there are certain paper types and certain printers that can produce that versus others, and I can guide you through that if you need help with that. Otherwise, downloading, installing, and utilizing Icc Profiles as part of soft proofing is another way to do that. It is a little bit more complicated, and I will tell you, we don't have a whole lot of photographers that, that do this, but it is something that's available to you and something that we can teach you how to do as well. And we're happy to do it. And I will show you at this part what exactly you need to do. So let me minimize that. Okay. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna try and share a different screen, but I gotta find it. 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna minimize that. Can you see my desktop?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up my web page over here, and hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just open a new tab really quick, and Victor, if you'll add this as well. This is one way to do it, so I'm just gonna show it real quick. So you can type in bit.ly/DPL profiles, and then just hit enter. Victor, if you'll put that into the chat for me, that would be helpful. What it's going to do is it's going to download a zip file of all of our most commonly used Icc profiles. And now let me go to my downloads, and I'm just going to go in here. So there's that zip file right there, but see, I downloaded a couple times. I'm just going to go right on into it. So this is what it looks like inside the actual folder. You see all of these individual Icc profiles that you can utilize within Photoshop or Lightroom, and I'll show you in Lightroom in a second if you use Lightroom. And then if you need to know how to install them, there are going to be 2 different ways to install them depending on whether you're on a PC or you're on a Mac. So I'll just double click on that really quick so you can see what that file looks like. Does everybody see that? It's just a little read text file. And it kind of goes into, I'll just read it real quick. If you have not calibrated your monitor, it is not recommended that you color adjust your images or soft proof your images until you have done this. So hopefully by the end of this, you understand that calibration is very important and you do it. And let's see, monitor calibration is the equivalent of tuning your instruments, as I stated. It is important to tune or calibrate so that you are in tune with the rest of the band, so to speak. Again, I love that metaphor, and I hope you do too by the end of it. All right, and then the individual installation instructions. So if you're on a PC, then it indicates go ahead and unzip the folder and then PCs actually have it pretty easy. You can put that to your desktop and then just right click on those individual profiles in Windows Explorer and then install you just right click and one of the options says install profile. It'll automatically install them to the location where it needs to go. And then if you need to know where that is on your Windows computer, then that's the path right there. If you have a Mac, it's a little more difficult because you actually have to manually place them into your folder, and you basically want to place them into your hard drive, go to library, go to color sync, and dump them into your profiles folder. So that's the other way that you can do it. Mac's just a little bit more cumbersome, but I can help if anybody needs help there. I'm not going to go into the process. Having this hopefully is going to give you enough information about how to do it. And then once you've done it, just get out of that. Get out of that. The next thing you would do if you have Photoshop or Lightroom open is you want to close them out and then reopen them again. And then when you open Photoshop, for example, everybody see my Photoshop screen? Good. Okay. When you open Photoshop, Photoshop is actually easier, in my opinion. Once you dump them into those folders, they're automatically, when you go to View, Proof Setup, and Custom, they're automatically going to populate into this area. You can see we have quite a few that we're testing on different printers and stuff, but you'll see them automatically populate in there with that restart of the software. And they'll be accessible to you to use within the soft proofing process that I just showed you. Now, Lightroom is a little bit more cumbersome. So let me open up Lightroom really quick. And when I talk about Lightroom, I'm typically talking about Lightroom Classic, not the Lightroom CC version or whatever. So I have that same image here in Lightroom. First thing that I want to draw your attention to is soft proofing is available in your develop module. So if I go to my develop module, which is what I'm in right now, at the very bottom, you're going to have some options. If you do not see the soft proofing option, then just click on this little upside down triangle thingy and then go down and then make sure that soft proofing is checked. And once it's checked, go back and recheck it, then you'll be able to see it. So if you don't see it, don't freak out, just click on that and then just make sure it's enabled. And once you enable it, you can turn it off and turn it on. So you can see I already have a profile associated by the shift in color that you're seeing here in the center, which is my image. Now, if I have it off, notice up here on the right-hand side, all standard stuff. The moment I turn it on, it enables this little module right here for soft proofing. And here next to profile, it actually has the profiles that I need. And I'll show you because this is where it gets a little cumbersome. I'm gonna explain it in a second. But if you don't automatically see them, which you won't, you wanna go to Other, and they're going to be right here. Okay, so you can see that there are some that are checked and some that are not. When you install them and try and use them into Lightroom, in Lightroom, you're going to have to go to that other option and go ahead and enable them. They will not be automatically enabled. You want to select the ones that you know you want to use and deselect the ones that you may not want to use, you know, in the future. You'll figure out which papers you like and don't like, and you don't need, you know, 40 different profiles in here. You may just need to use 5 or 6. Okay, so that's what I have selected there. And then I'll go ahead and click OK. And then again, just those that are selected are the ones that are going to get displayed right here. Okay, and I can switch between them. So if I go here to my Pro E or our Luster paper, I can see that that one's enabled now. And then I just use my button down here and turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. And again, it's just emulating what that printer is going to do with that particular paper type. I never recommend, this is pretty important, do not edit with soft proofing on. So you don't want to turn this on and then go down here and make adjustments. You don't want to do that. It's going to make it quite a bit more complicated. And we don't really see good consistency when you do that. So you want to turn it off and turn it on and just kind of see what areas need to be adjusted. And remember that it's showing you the capability of the printer. So just because you turn on soft proofing and you notice that that green is not as neon as you want it, that doesn't mean come up here and start messing with the colors and all of that other stuff to try and push it. Because at the end of the day, that printer is not capable of producing that particular color, okay? The soft proofing is really just to show you that capability or lack of capability so that you can make a decision as to what paper type or printer that you actually want to use. So say there's that neon green that I wanted to maintain, maybe a silver halide print on Pro Luster paper is not going to do for that image. We're going to need to upgrade that paper to a fine art Hahnemühle paper or something like that, because it's going to maintain neon greens a lot better than maybe the Pro Luster paper is going to. And again, you can see other areas that are affected depending on what type of paper or printer that you're actually using. And that's what that's for. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far about soft proofing? I think I covered the majority of it. No? Okay.
One question, Amanda.
Yep.
I'm sorry. So I heard you mention, you know, depending on what printer and what paper you're using, is there some list that says, hey, this printer prints with these papers, or can all papers print on all printers, or am I making sense about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish I had something on the website that denotes that. It's a good suggestion. I might add it.
Okay.
I can definitely tell you, you know, now what types of papers. Let's see if I can get to the website real quick, just while we're kind of talking about it.
Hey, Amanda, while you're looking for the website, I just want to let you and everybody else know that for the evaluation image, I sent the zip file and the image itself in the chat room, so you can download it from the chat room. And then also the zip file for the profiles is in the chat room. You can download it from the chat room.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
All right, so I'm just going to go to products really quick. So the top three right here are silver halide. Again, those are those wet prints or chemistry prints that are light sensitive paper. They're still some of the most durable papers. So just because you can't hit certain colors doesn't mean that they're not great papers. In a flood or something like that, I'd rather have my stuff printed on this than some of the other stuff, okay? Then you have, you know, your premium luster, torch on, German etching, photo rag. Those are all going to be fine art done on high resolution inkjet. Okay, so these are all done with inkjet. Canvases are all done with inkjet. The other thing we haven't really talked about is sublimation. So sublimation is technically inkjet. So it's got a wide color gamut. So if you're doing metal or wood or something like that, the only difference with the inks is we're using inks that are heat infused to the substrate. So we take ink transfer paper, right? Paper that is supposed to be activated when heat is placed on it, and it moves those inks via the heat over to the substrate, and it infuses them into the substrates like metal. So that's another inkjet process. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else as far as that goes. But I think that's a good kind of overview. So yeah, all these three up here are going to be silver halide. The rest, including canvas, are going to be your inkjet, and then your sublimation inks here. So I do want to go over, and I'm just going to pick torch on fine art paper, okay? Because I do want to let you know, as we add new papers, and we have another one on there that we haven't quite added to the website, which is a Barita paper that's also Giclée print. But let me show you this. So when you go to any of our paper options, you should see this product resources tab. And within the product resources tab, there's a lot of really rich information. One of which is that Icc profile. So if you knew you didn't want all of our profiles and you really just fell in love with a certain paper or certain selection of papers, and you can absolutely go to our website and download that specific Icc profile, because we have those there available for you as well as a paper spec sheet, which as you get a little bit more in depth with learning what thicknesses papers are and things like that, you can definitely look at the spec sheet, and it's going to give you a really in-depth overview of what it's made of, how thick it is, your white point, what method of printing it utilizes. So that's a really great resource as well. And we have these resource sections throughout our website. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to show you on our website, if you go to services, let me go down. All right, so I wanted to mention monitor calibration. So you can always invest in your own colorimeter device. Like I said, depending on which ones you go with, the one we recommend is $249.95, which is the X-Rite i1 Display Pro. And that one's always a good one to do. Or if you need somebody else to do it, we offer the service as well. And you just go over to monitor calibration and then just move on to our website, click through that. And if you forget everything I taught you and you want a little quick overview, then you just come over here. It's going to go right over a little bit about what I've already talked about as far as why it's so important, and then gives you the metaphors and all that good stuff. The other thing that it has here are some of the options that we have for monitor calibration if we do it. So we can do it the first time we do it, it's $19 or $99.95. Every recalibration we do of the same device is going to be $49.95. And then if you're a photographer that has a studio, not an in-home studio, but an actual brick and mortar studio, we also go out and do that for free. Because of the level of photographer that you typically are when you have your own studio within San Antonio city limits. I'm going to say that because I know we're talking to New Braunfels people, but that's an option too.
So if you do the monitor calibration, you bring your device into you.
Yeah, you would need to bring the in. So for example, if you had a desktop computer, don't just bring your monitor. You want to bring in the entire device, your computer, your monitor, all of your power cords, and then of course a password so that we can access it in order to calibrate your device.
That's okay.
Laptops are a little easier to cart around versus a computer. But okay, so last thing, if you click on ordering, at our lab, we're a little different than other labs. We have what are called print workflows, okay? So the two main print workflows we have are full service and monitor match, okay? Full service is for the individual that wants the lab to do color adjustments and they don't want to worry about any of that stuff, okay? It's bundled in the cost. Now for y'all, because you're editing your own images, now you're savvy to monitor calibration and the importance. Really, you need to be over here on monitor match for the individual that's editing their own images on a calibrated monitor, okay? The pricing is a lot more competitive here because the lab's not having to go and do additional adjustments to your images. All we're doing is maintaining our quality and color consistency with the industry standard, and we're simply producing the products instead of having to go again and color correct or do any additional service on top of that. So if I click learn more or just click on the little icon, it's going to take me to the next page. The very important pop-up, I was very excited to have this. It's a little barrier right here because I do want to reaffirm the importance of monitor calibration and what it means. And really, you should not be passing go at this point if you're not ready to do everything you need to do to get to the point that this is the good print workflow for you, okay? So let's assume everybody understands, everybody's had their monitor calibrated, you understand. So let's go ahead and get out of that. Over on the right-hand side, I just want to move to the bottom really quick, just for y'all's reference. So at the beginning, I showed you that monitor evaluation kit, the one that I said was free. If you want to come into the store, like I said, we have them for free, readily available for you. Or you can request one, okay? And this is the area where you can request one. Just go ahead and click request kit, and it's gonna just pop up a little like email form here for you. Let me just get out of it. Just email us and say, hey, can you please send me a kit and give me your address if you need us to mail it to you. We'll do that, again, free of charge. What we want to make sure is that we give you all of the tools so that you're a confident printer, because confident printers don't get mad at labs that that maybe something didn't come out right. So we want to make sure and do everything we can so that everybody understands and everybody is happy at the end of the day, because this is complicated stuff. Trust me. It gets really complicated very fast, as I've told you, and we don't want to overcomplicate something that doesn't necessarily need to be overcomplicated if we can give you the tools and the knowledge to actually do it and do it correctly. If I go up, again, it kind of talks a little bit about monitor match and our monitor match guarantee. So we've trademarked monitor match guarantee. There are not very many labs that can say that they guarantee it's going to match a properly calibrated monitor. But we've done this for years and years and years, and we're incredibly confident that what we teach you is exactly what you need to know so that you get a really, really good monitor to print match. And then from that point, anything that comes out of our machines is 100% going to match your properly calibrated monitor, so that you know that when you're doing something and editing it, your style is going to be perfectly preserved from monitor to print, okay? And then if that all sounds dandy to you, you can always click sign up now. It is required in order to utilize our monitor match print workflow. And really, we do a little bit of vetting further and make sure you understand what monitor calibration all entails. And then you just click sign up and fill out the online form. And then one of us at the lab will allow you access to our monitor match ordering system, which can only be accessed through the login portal right here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that and log in. So we give you credentials and we associate your password. Apparently I have some orders. It's crazy. All right, so then I have the download rows up here in the upper right-hand side, and then I'm just gonna go down, and now I can see that I have a Windows download, a Mac download for this system, and this is the only place you can access it with those credentials. Okay, let's get out of all that. Okay, so I think I've covered everything. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
I would just say on the monitor match program about the test images.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
We're going to talk about it. I mean, you might want to mention that, I guess.
Yeah. So we give a lot of free stuff away, like the evaluation kit. The other thing, again, it's all meant to build confidence and educate. And the other part of that, if I go, let me share my screen one more time. Desktop. Okay, so over here on the bottom left, if I can grab it. Okay, so there's actual monitor match software. Okay, we call it DPL Rose Professional. So I'm just going to double click on that really quick and launch it. And within this particular ordering system, there is a catalog that is called Monitor Evaluation Prints. And they're basically 4 free 8x10 prints that we encourage all of our first time and consistent users of our monitor match print workflow to utilize to test and consistently test or constantly test their consistency between monitor to print. So I'm going to go ahead and go in there. I'm just going to go to build order. Well, apparently I got to log in. Hold on. Okay, build order. And then if I drop this down and I go down, monitor match evaluation prints right there. Let me just fly this out. And again, these are 4 free prints. They do come watermarked with this at the bottom. Trust me, we've had some people try and fly by us some free 8x10s just randomly just cause. But these are meant to evaluate. So we have them in there, and you just submit each of them to test your monitor calibration, just like we did with this evaluation image. But now you don't have to do it with an evaluation image. You can actually evaluate with your own images. They are printed on our Pro Luster paper because it's the most commonly used paper. And then the other part of that, when people ask me, well, what images should I send, do consider that evaluation image and how many different types of images we place on that. That's what you should be thinking about when you're actually evaluating. So if you shoot black and white and color, I want to make sure that you put through a black and white image and a color image. Now, when we're talking about color, there's neutral toned images like portraits, right? And then you also have these elaborate, you know, nighttime photography landscapes or sunsets or something like that, where the colors, the color gamut really needs to be tested. So we'd want to see something of both, you know, a neutral skin tone and then, you know, these bright, vibrant landscapes or something. So those should be, it's meant to test your monitor. So make sure you're testing it, not doing, you know, 4 different versions of the same person in the same setting with the same everything and just shifting poses or something. You don't want to use that. That's not going to be a good indicator on whether your monitor is too dark or too bright or, you know, can't handle certain color variations. Okay. Thanks, Anthony, for that. So I'll get out of that. Okay. Any other questions?
Now's your Q&A time, folks.
I feel like maybe I just covered it all. I don't know. It was thorough. I know it can be a really dry conversation, but it's also fun.
Okay. Well, if nobody's got any questions, I just want to thank Amanda for taking the time to do this for us. For those of you that came in late, a recorded version of this is going to be up on our club's YouTube channel, which we're going to unveil here in the next couple of days. Okay. And Amanda, a couple of people had to leave early, but in the chat room, they typed out their thanks, and we're very appreciative of you taking the time to do this. I can't tell you how much Amanda has helped our club with different things. We put a few print shows together that wouldn't have come off if it hadn't been for Amanda and Ray. So Digital Pro Lab has been a go-to sponsor for us for quite a while. Okay. And thanks a lot, Amanda. I really appreciate what you do for us.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, with that said, we're going to go ahead and close out. And I'm pretty sure Ray has been over there in the kitchen diligently cooking a really super dinner for Amanda. And if not, I'll pull him to the side next time I'm in the store, Amanda. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down.
Can I ask a quick question before we go?
Sure.
Are you doing anything like through any Zoom things through DPL? Or?
So we have not. However, I had a couple of requests, one from Anthony to go kind of a deep dive into our monitor match program so that there's a deeper understanding of everything that you have available to you in there, especially as pro photographers and as artists. It's actually really good to have a thorough overview. So I was going to be talking to Victor to see if maybe we can do a Zoom together, a separate one that's specifically monitor match. Per Anthony's request.
Does it interest you to do any on on importing iPhone or importing iPhone images onto your laptop or your computer rather than doing it all in the phone?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely go over a lot of stuff. I know at Digital Pro Lab, we really haven't done a lot of Zoom stuff unless it's done in conjunction with another organization. I know we did our power hours, and we're actually doing power hour PMs before everything kind of happened. And then my focus drastically had to shift to other areas of our company.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, hiring some people and about to get into the crazy of Christmas, which normally we wouldn't do power hours and stuff during Christmas time. But if Victor would like to head up some of these topics that y'all have certain suggestions, I'm happy to do it after hours. You know, whether it's, you know, monitor match stuff or if there's something Photoshop wise. I know there's a 2021 Photoshop features updates and stuff. I haven't actually dove totally into it, but I know there's some cool stuff in there that we could possibly go over. So if Victor wants to head it, then I'm happy to talk.
That's awesome. And I wasn't gonna, I got a list of topics that we'd like to see, but I wasn't gonna go back to the well too soon. I know December's coming up and the shop gets real busy, but when things start to slow down in January, I don't know where we're going to be at as far as the virus and everything. But you know, Zoom is a real good you know, we've been using it. We want to continue to use it. And like I said in the opening of the thing, we've created a YouTube channel, and we hope to put up more educational type videos up on that channel, so members can go in that maybe, you know, they had to go parent teacher night or something like that and couldn't attend a Zoom. So, all right. Well, thanks, Amanda. And guys,
Thanks, Amanda.
Yes,
Thanks, Amanda. We'll see you guys. Have a good night, everybody.
Great presentation.
all right. Night, everybody.
Good night.
Let's see.
we're leaving, I guess. Thank you.
Yes, we're leaving.
Okay.
Okay.